Migrant parents deported after being separated from their children at the border could soon return to the U.S. if advocates can locate them in their home country. According to numbers released by the ACLU in 2019, more than 2,600 migrant children were ripped away from their parents as a result of the Trump administration's zero-tolerance policies. Of those, about 120 are still in U.S. custody. CBS News immigration reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez spoke with one family that just got their happy ending.
After hearing more than a dozen bangs, Klebe immediately worried about her children.
Cuando salí, pues estaba mi hijo tirado.
Y no me imagino algo más difícil para una madre, ¿no?
Es muy difícil.
Her teenage son, Marco, had been gunned down outside his grandmother's home in Guatemala, right in front of his sister.
Kaylee estaba a la par de él.
The family believes gang members killed Marco because he was part of a neighborhood watch. They went into hiding, but continued to receive threats.
Yo sentía que nosotros ya no estábamos seguros en ese país.
In early 2018, the family set out for the U.S., but officials in Mexico split them into two groups. Klebe and two of her daughters asked for asylum in Texas. They were detained, but released soon after. Andrea and her father, Fernando, met a different fate.
Nos separaron, o sea, de la nada.
Officials were separating migrant families as a matter of policy. Andrea eventually reunited with their mother and sisters, but Fernando remained detained and was ultimately deported. Klebe and the girls settled down in Los Angeles, while Fernando went into hiding in Guatemala.
Faltaba una parte para terminar nuestra felicidad.
In September, a judge ordered the administration to allow Fernando and 10 other migrant parents it deported without their children to return to the U.S. The family's prayers were finally answered in January.
Hoy se termina de llenar el rompecabezas. Después de casi 2 años.
A todos los padres que nos están viendo, que están separados de sus hijos, que tengan paciencia, que tengan fe, que oren mucho porque los milagros existen.
Advocates estimate there are hundreds of parents like Fernando who were deported to Central America without their kids.
If we find out that they were misled or coerced into giving up their asylum rights, we will ask the judge to have them be brought back as well.
Though the road was difficult, Allison is happy her family is finally together in the U.S.
We're safe here.
And Camilo joins us now from Washington. So, Camilo, why does the ACLU believe it can help other migrant parents like Fernando return to the U.S.?
Yes, good morning, Vlad. Last September, the federal judge overseeing the main family separation case issued a really unprecedented ruling ordering the Trump administration to allow Fernando and 10 other migrant parents who were deported without their kids to come back here to the U.S. The judge found some were misled or coerced into waiving their rights under U.S. asylum law. He also said Fernando and 2 other parents were deported after he explicitly ordered the administration to halt the deportation of these parents that had been separated from their kids. So the ACLU now believes that this order put in place a legal recourse for some of the hundreds of parents it estimates were deported to Central America and Mexico without their children. If it can prove, Vlad, that these parents were unlawfully deported, the ACLU believes the judge could order their return, but advocates have to find and interview them first.
So, Camilo, how are groups looking for other parents who were deported to Central America after being forcibly separated from their children?
Yes, in the summer of 2018, the ACLU set up a steering committee to locate these parents. After months of calls and underground searches, the committee was able to find all deported parents who were separated from their children during the zero-tolerance period in 2018. But last October of 2019, the administration revealed that it had separated an additional 1,500 families between the summer of 2017 and June 2018. Since the judge overseeing this case said these families might also be eligible for reunification, the committee has spent months tracking them down. It has reached more than 300 parents, but it has been unsuccessful in reaching the rest, nearly 700, since the phone numbers provided by the administration are often outdated. The committee continues to call nearly 400 of these parents, but it has deemed the rest unreachable.
So how many deported parents are we talking about here, Camilo?
Well, it's about 300 unreachable parents that we have no idea where they are. The group Justice in Motion, a nonprofit, has tracked down at least 113 of these unreachable parents through underground searches in Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras, and the groups continue to scour the region for the rest, sending letters to addresses provided by the administration, and even setting up hotlines in Spanish in these countries. But when the files don't contain any addresses, the groups have to turn to public records or interviews with neighbors and other family members. An advocate told us that they are traveling on foot, on motorcycles, in cars to locate these parents in both large cities and remote rural areas. But what they definitely told us is that out of all these families that they've reached and interviewed in their home countries, Justice in Motion said it has identified parents who are still without their kids' blood and who could be eligible for the same relief Fernando was granted last September. So that group has been referring such cases to the ACLU for future litigation.
And finally, Camilo, just a sense you can provide to our audience of when you're talking to some of these families. You can see the emotion in the folks that you're speaking with on camera. I mean, I know these interviews go on much longer than ultimately we show on television. So just describe for our audience how they feel and how they feel in talking to you and hoping that their story gets out and perhaps changes the minds of some people who maybe perhaps supported this zero tolerance policy.
Sure. Well, the family is really happy to be here in the U.S. where they feel safe. It's important to underscore that they came here after their teenage son was murdered, right? And authorities there were unable or unwilling to fully investigate the case and protect the family from future threats. The family felt they had no other option but to leave here, which that counters the argument made by the administration that many of these families have no legitimate asylum claims, that they are, for the most part, economic migrants. And the other thing that's important to note is that once Fernando landed, and I found this really interesting, Vlad, one of the first things he did was obviously express the joy of being in the U.S., but also say that he wants the same opportunity he received for these other parents who had also been separated from their kids and then deported. And as we know, Vlad, there are hundreds of them, and these groups are still looking for them.
Some really important reporting there. Camilo, thank you so much as always. We appreciate it.